And here we are with another lockdown presentation. Today we've got Daniel West with us. Daniel is a fantastic all-round photographer, does a bit of everything and does it bloody well. Today, today we're going to get him to chat to us about jewelry photography, because I'm obviously trying to get as wide a set of genres as possible. And he does the most fantastic jewelry work. So I thought, well, we'll get him on board and take it from there. Yeah, I think Daniel, if you want to take it from there, what have you been doing during this lockdown period? Anything interesting, or is it same as everyone else, just suffering through it?
That's hectic. Thank you, Quentin. Really, really appreciate you being here. It's a fantastic platform. I must say, must recommend you for that. It's been growing quite hectic, like the community and everything. Congratulations, and really, really, really proud to be part of this. Yeah, in terms of the lockdown, it's been crazy, started off with a bang and then obviously kind of got lazy in a sense, got appendicitis, which kind of blew me a little bit back in that sense.
Yeah, that'll make you a bit lazy, huh?
Yeah, definitely. So then from there, just recovering. I've spent a lot of time trying to refine my brand, look into business-wise, what we can do, how we can get some money and all that type of things. But on the sideline, spending a lot of time with the family, not brewing anything just yet. I'm really considering getting into the beer brewing.
Yeah, it's coming. I'm telling you, I'm trying to find a still to distill gin in my garage. So anyone who's got a gin still, I'll come and fetch it.
That would be awesome. So yeah, other than that, just being really, really focusing on myself and obviously my family, just to see how that goes. But yeah, thank you for having me here. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on board, man.
It's awesome. Okay, yeah, so today we'll be talking about jewelry photography. If I can just jump right in. I'm not too sure how long this is going to be, but I'll try and touch base wherever we go. If there is any questions that arises, please stop me and say, hey, listen, let's
yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that, yeah.
And then let's see what we can do for that. All
right? Yeah, awesome.
All right, so just go share screen again. Share. All right, are we
perfect? Good. Looking good.
Excellent. Okay, so it's working and everything in that sense. So obviously, welcome to Jewelry Photography by myself. To be honest with you, I've started. Well, I've got a wide range of disciplines that I've done before I went into jewelry photography, because getting into the market is very, very, very difficult, I'd say, because you need to
Daniel.
Yes.
Can you make it full screen just to see through the because I can see the menu on the side there.
Oh, still see it. Oh.
Yeah.
My apologies. Let's just go back. Because if I go Command L, which is full screen mode, still see the sides, eh?
See a black screen now.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, now it's back. Yeah, there we go. That's better. That should be fine.
Rather do this. Sorry, because I don't know why it doesn't want to.
No, that's fine.
Full screen. Okay. Okay. So jewelry photography.
Yeah, start again. There we go. Continue. Let's go.
So getting into jewelry photography is very difficult because you need to get obviously the clients and all that type of things. So the contacts, and they need to trust you as well with a brand, with their jewelry. It's a very, how can I say, it's not difficult to shoot, but it's very technical in a sense. So there's a lot of aspects that you need to take into consideration while taking the jewelry piece and everything. We're going to touch base on that as we go a little bit deeper into it. But basically how I've started was I've been thrown into the deep end. I was a graphic designer for Jenna Clifford at the time, and I've had to learn on the spot as I go. The photographer that I've actually learned from is Chris Vessels. He's a very, very, very good jewelry photographer. Actually, also all around. Like, you probably know him, Quentin.
He's on the chat right now. He says, how's it, Quentin and Daniel?
That's awesome. So basically, yeah, I've learned basically from his photographs how to light it, how to go into the jewelry photography in that sense, because the company kind of forced me into saying, okay, listen, this is the product that we want. Let's get there, So it was a very deep and hands-on type of way to learn from it. Now, before I got into that, I was a very good retoucher for the shots that they've taken on their own system. And obviously from there, you build the relationship and obviously then take the photos as it is. So the point that I want to make here is learning from other photographers is not essential, but it is very, very helpful in a sense. So obviously there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. The way that I'm doing it might not be the best way all around, but it gets the job done. So jewelry photography, you get a wide range of jewelry, obviously, from your rings to your pendants to your to the change, even to watches and all that sort of thing. So each type of jewelry that you have has its own characteristic that you need to highlight. Obviously, in terms of the stones that you've got, the type of metals that's being used, gold, etc., etc. So you really need to understand jewelry before actually going into it, and just to kind of understand what needs to be highlighted in that particular product, if I can say that. So the anatomy of the engagement, well, of the jewelry piece is very, very important, just to understand what they're talking about, because clients don't understand photography lingo so much as we don't understand then jewelry. So if they are talking about the shank or the base or the size ring or the center stone or whatever the case may be, just know exactly what they are talking about, because you don't want to sit there with your thumb in your mouth and like, what's what is a gallery rail or a prong, etc., etc. So knowing the part obviously helps a lot in that sense as well. And then obviously from there, you can understand the characteristics of that particular product and hopefully photograph it and light it very, very well. All right. So there are quite a few types of jewelry that we can look at. The first one is normally about lifestyle and everything. That means taking that product and putting it into an environment. Like some companies really like the clean look, like the whites and the darks and the grays and the blacks and all that type of things. And others really love, very not dear mekaar. What is the word? Kind of went blank on there.
Are you thinking more sort of on models or on materials and even that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely, on models and all that type of things, like more lifestyle with including a model onto it.
So maybe you by dear mekaar you mean messy. That's messy, kind of what it sounds like to me.
Sorry, yeah, that's actually the word I was looking for. Cluttered. That is the word.
Yes, that's better. That's a more luxury term. Cluttered.
There we go. Yes. So that is more your lifestyle. Obviously, having a product into an environment and showcasing how it's being used or how it's being portrayed in that sense. Then you've got the pack shots, which is basically used for your catalog shots, your websites, your e-brochures, or whatever the case may be that they want to use it. It's more clean shot, which portrays the product itself for sell value or whatever they would like to do with that. So the brief from the client would be the most important aspect of communication, obviously, because they've got an expectation. They want a certain product to be out there for a certain application. So just to understand that whole language between client and photographer is very essential, just to get the end product right for that particular client. So yeah, get the brief from the client as soon as possible and as briefly as possible, and not briefly, as more concentrated as possible, like that exactly we're shooting this for a catalog, or we're shooting this for a website, or we're shooting this for a magazine, or whatever the case may be. Which also brings us to copyright, which we're going to talk about just now as well. But the brief is very, very essential, that we know exactly what we are photographing it for. So copywriting, within the South African laws, everything that somebody buys from you, like for instance, if I have this correctly, sorry, I'm not a lawyer. So if I go and pay you for a service, I have that right to that photographs, unless I sign an indemnity form with you to portray that, to give you the rights to use it, obviously. So within the jewelry business, it works exactly the same. However, they contain the copyright from beginning to end. You won't ever get a client who will say, okay, listen, we give you the rights to use the photographs. Obviously for educational purposes and that type of things, more than welcome to, and portfolio. But in terms of like to go and sell that particular photo on Shutterstock or whatever, there's no way that they're going to do it, because obviously it's their design and their intellectual property that goes into that. But moreover that, the reason is they use it in various medias. Like this one was used in the South African Deluxe magazine, for example, big partner of Jenna Clifford, which was, I think they still have it, but it's a fantastic book. It's nice and shiny. It's very glossy, very, very stunning. But they tend to use that photographs with other shots as well. But let's just quickly go on to the next one. For example, this is a is Kind by Kavi, is also one of the clients that I've done work for, where they've used the photographs on their site and they sell it as it goes. So obviously they need to have the copyright for the images to use it as a sell product, because obviously they want to sell it. Other instances where they've used the products in like spreads and everything, like other magazines, where the photographs will be being used with other photographers' works as well. Like for instance, for this shot, beautiful photograph of Chris Vessel in the middle with that bracelet, as you can see there, the pearl bracelet, that's being used by one of the rings, which we've done in the orbit view in Jenna Clifford. So the thing is, you're definitely going to be in the places where photographs of yourself, of your photographs, will be being used with other photographers' work as well. Like this, I'm not sure who everybody was, but we've got about 3 or 5 items in the middle spread, which was Jenna Clifford's. And then on the right-hand spread, if I can show with my mouse, I'm not sure if you can see the mouse, but this particular shot, the one on top, the lifestyle shot, was Chris Vessel's one. And then the one underneath was my photograph that was being used in conjunction in one publication. I think this was South African Deluxe as well. So the copyright needs to remain with the client, unfortunately. So you won't be able to obviously sell the photographs from there. So let's talk equipment.
It's kind of a pity that we have that situation in South Africa. You know, I mean, everywhere else in the world, the copyright, sits with the photographer. And I think that, once we all start looking at that as an issue, we can, hopefully try and get that resolved so that we can own our work. I mean, there will still be clients that will say, listen, there's no way, either I own it or you don't shoot it. And that's also fine. But I think the run of the mill stuff should really be owned by the photographer, the artist that creates it. There's just a question here from Desiree. Do you shoot every individual piece or just color correct in post, silver, gold, rose gold?
Let's go back to this one, for example. That's just probably where the question arises as well. For consistency, and we'll touch base on how we do this as well, but for this particular one, we've shot each product on its own, and then in post, we went and color changed every piece to match that particular color. The reason for this is consistency, especially for this website for them. It was literally to have that, the style of that particular ring or earrings or whatever the case may be, to be in the exact same position as it is over and top. So just to quickly touch base on that, that falls into the equipment again. A color checker is very, very important for me regarding that, because the rose golds especially is it can be different on the type of jewelry item that there is. So having a color checker, which is right here in the middle on the right-hand side, is quite essential, especially if you're photographing new jewelry that you haven't worked with, or a new company that you haven't worked before. They've got a different manufacturer or whatever the case may be, that you're not familiar with the color gradings that's come out. But even if you have 2 types of jewelry next to each other, in terms of rose gold earrings with a rose gold pendant, the color may slightly vary a little bit. And it does get noticed on a website where it's being showed right next to each other like this. So yeah, definitely a post-production thing, but you can shoot them all with each other. Once again, it depends on the brief of the client. If they are looking at, for example, if they want all of these 3 rings next to each other, you'll photograph that as one product and then retouch it as is. And then just make sure that your colors are matching in that sense. Cool. So attention to detail is very, very important. Okay, so with the equipment, tripod, very, very important, especially if you're going to do a little bit longer exposures. But because we are shooting macro with the macro lens, I prefer the 100 millimeter macro 2.8. It's very sharp at f8. Fantastic lens, like really, really pin sharp at f8.0, obviously. So having a tripod is essential for it, and obviously a trigger somehow, or even you can photograph it through your computer, whereas you won't touch your camera at all. So obviously the body, the camera, the lens, the tripod, very essential. Then you've got your trigger, you got your wireless, or wiring that goes towards your computer if you're going to shoot remotely or tethered. But tethered is quite nice because then you can actually check for the sharpness and all that type of things from there. Um, then a little, a little light box, if I can say. This is DIY also if you want to. It's just literally to create an environment which is completely white, that doesn't have any reflections coming in, because the shanks and well, the parts of the jewelry is very, very reflective. Once again, depending on what jewelry type you are using it. But especially also for your main stones, it is heavy reflective. With the refraction, you can quickly see your own camera equipment in there. It's just like a little black spot, but we don't want black spots in the um, in the main stones if you are well, obviously if the client doesn't want it as well. So having something like that, like a little DIY, or even a little what do you call it, light box or something like that, just eliminates all that clutter around it. And then very important, because we are shooting at f8, the the focus point is very, very, very minimal. So we use a focus rail. That's what it's called. It's this thing right underneath over here. That you literally take a photo, move forward, take a photo, move forward, take a photo, move forward, or backwards, depending on your processing. But in the end, what you'll do is you'll take all those photographs and smash it into one to have it sharp from the tip of the stone until the end of the jewelry piece that you're photographing. It helps a lot, and it looks just nice and clean from beginning to end. And then glue gun, I found, is really, really nice to style it. It dries easy, dries fast, and it literally keeps that particular product in place at one place. Where you use gum, I've had that before, or even press stick, with time, because you need to have your jewelry item very, very still, it does move slightly, or move over, or whatever the case may be. It kind of leans over if you are using any product that hasn't been, that doesn't, I don't know.
I suppose it doesn't fix it into place there.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Obviously, if in the case of those the other rings that you had all in the same angle, etc. Something that's so thin and tall, you put a little blob of press stick underneath there, is never going to hold onto it.
No, it's going to hold a little bit, but then it's going to start.
Yeah, exactly. And then by the time you get to the last shot that you focus stacking, it's fallen over.
Exactly. So you don't want that at all.
For sure.
So yeah,
I've got a question. It's got a question about fingerprints and lint and that sort of thing. Obviously, I know from experience, you shoot something and it looks fantastic, and then you get it onto your screen and there's bits of lint and all sorts. Even though you have cleaned it so that you think it's perfect, you've got a paintbrush and you made sure there's no lint on there. How do you solve that situation?
All right. So basically, it doesn't matter how much you clean your hands, there's always going to be oil on it. So if you are in the position that you need to use your hands, I'd suggest to get a micro cloth and what is it called, a earbud, just to kind of clean it from there. But I found that surgical gloves, if you can get any in this time, works the best, because it doesn't have any residue on it. It's nice and clean. So basically, you work with that in that sense. Your hands does get a little bit sweaty after a time, especially if you're going to shoot like a full day. So have a box there with surgical gloves, and it would be perfect in that sense. I've also seen that I've worked with cloth gloves as well. You normally get them from a print shop or whatever, but the problem is they've got microfibers that's in there, or fibers that sticks to your rings, unfortunately, or the finer detail on that particular pendant or jewelry piece. But having, for example, surgical gloves with those rubber surgical gloves, especially, those works the best in terms of it doesn't leave any residue on it. It doesn't leave any fingerprints or whatever the case may be. So it's just literally put it on to your little platform, and then move along with that. So yeah, hopefully that helps in that sense. Yeah,
that's cool. Thanks.
Okay, so also clamps, very, very important, just to clamp a couple of things, especially if you're going to use reflectors and everything. It works great for bases, like you put the clamp in and kind of stick it down as a foot piece type of vibe. Very, very nice to work with that. Then other companies, if the company really, really loves to enjoy it, well, spend a lot of money. There's things called the orbit views, or they've got this automated light boxes that they use. It does take a while to get used to them, but unfortunately for me, the quality is not the same than photographing with the equipment of a professional photographer. So you still have the camera, the professional camera out there, but the lighting and everything is being done for you. This is especially great for pack shots, but it's more for that type of shoots that you're going to do literally for your website or whatever, that you just want to shoot it, get it out onto the Instagram or Facebook or even on your website really fast and really sufficient ways. The program itself kind of deep edged as well, not as good that I found, but it does do a decent job if anybody's looking into buying one of these. It's a lot of money though, but there's different varieties and everything. I know that one company has used this quite a bit, and it does the job. It really, really does the job. But I just personally prefer the equipment of a professional camera with lighting and everything. Then we go into lighting. I'm a big fan of Profoto, so yeah. Spelling error. Sorry about that. But yeah, big fan of Profoto's light because of the consistency, the time it refreshes, and the white balances, and all that sort of things. It's really fast, really reliable. Absolutely, absolutely love Profoto. Big shout out to Profoto South Africa, by the way. Not sponsored, but ambassador for them. So it's very, very nice to have them on board in that sense. But yeah, lighting is your most essential thing when you photograph jewelry. You need power, power, and power. Because when shooting at f8, for example, at ISO 100, you kind of need quite a bit of power to light that particular product up, especially because it's so small and you're quite zoomed in. You need a lot of light to get that product really shining the way it needs to. So on a typical shoot, I'd use about 6 to 8 lights, depending on what we are photographing. But I've also used just one speed light, which is the Profoto A1, for example. Very fast, sufficient. And once again, it really depends on what the client is looking for, the end product. But we're going to talk about setup. I think it's the next slide right over here, for example. The one on the left-hand side would be a typical product shot for a catalog or whatever the case may be. Light from the back, light from the side, light from the top, a snoot from the front, and even a nice gridded softbox that's from the front, just to highlight the type of jewelry item that you're using. Once again, your anatomy of the jewelry item is very, very important. You need to know what you're going to showcase and what makes this jewelry piece so unique towards the others. Because I mean, a normal infinity band towards a big morganite ring, you're going to highlight that big morganite, for example, where with the infinity band, it's just photograph it because it looks nice in that sense. So for a studio setup, I'd definitely go for something more similar to the left-hand side, but I've also photographed jewelry on the right-hand side, just using normal natural light coming in with a reflector. It really depends on the type of jewelry that you're going to do and what you want to portray from that side. Okay. So then styling, very, 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 very important, because this is what sells it. This is kind of what, especially with your lifestyle shots, it really depends on what you want to portray for the particular jewelry and everything. This was a fantastic piece that Jenna did. It was beautiful. It's quite big. It's about that size, give or take, more or less, but it's fantastic. So we want to portray it on skin and just show the beauty of these roses and all that beautiful little diamonds that was in there. With it, obviously, a little bit bring the color in of the purples and all that type of thing. So styling is very, very important. Looking at other photographers' work and obviously what sells and what has been used and all that type of things really, really, really helps with the styling. Sometimes you do get lucky with having a stylist on board, like an art director or something like that, that they would actually come and sit and put each little flower where that it needs to be. But yeah, for example, it's just a silly example in that sense.
I was actually just going to ask you how often your clients supply stylists, or if they rely on you to do it, or if they do it themselves.
Well, it is company dependent, to be honest with you,
and budget dependent.
And budget dependent, because I mean, having another stylist there, obviously they charge what they charge, but about 80% of the time, I would say I had to style it on my own, like put it in, and like for example, this one, we had to style it according to what the brief wanted to be. So you do get lucky sometimes, but it really, really depends on the client itself and what they want to portray. For example, this one, client by Kavi again, they had 3 different earrings, for example, with 3 different, that looks different, obviously. We've got the beautiful angel wings, we've got the normal circular earring, the hoop earring, and then we've got the leaf earring. And each one has its own characteristics. And when you photograph, for example, the leaf in the way that we photograph the hoop earrings, it won't portray as beautiful or as intense as, well, it won't portray the right, correct way, because obviously this needs to go onto the website where clients will be buying it. And if the client do get something and they weren't happy with how it looked like in terms of the comparison between real life product versus what they've got on the internet, they do get unhappy, and customer cares in there, and it's a little bit messy. So you have to photograph the products the best way possible to represent it as natural as possible. It's still as beautiful and luxurious as possible in that sense, if I can put it that way. Others, I mean, this was a cool brief that we've had with using, what was this again? Poe theater. What?
Peacock.
Peacock.
Yeah.
Where we used peacock feathers and just kind of did a little bit of photoshopping there. Also, but the highlight kind of came in towards that beautiful ring that's over there with the main stone and a lot of the smaller stones around it. Absolutely stunning. And then this one, very, very easy. I was kind of left in the dark. We just needed to photograph an old, they called it the hair. It's an older range of Jenna Clifford where we wanted to get that back onto the market. It hasn't been forgotten, but we still wanted to push that out in the products. Can't remember what they call it again. So sorry about that. But what I've used here was a frame of a painting, and I just kind of plugged it in there, took the photo, and moved on. Took a couple of sides from it, but this was one light, literally with the Pro Photo A1 from the top, and shot it like that.
It looks like when I first saw it, I thought, yeah, I'm sure you took that at a wedding, because it's the kind of thing that wedding photographers will look at. You walk into a room and you go, what are the textures, what are the colors, what are the oh, that'll be great for for the rings or something like that. So I thought, yeah, I wonder.
Well, you're probably correct in that sense, because I mean, every style of photography does influence your way of photographing, a way of looking at things. I think definitely the weddings kind of had its involvement in there. This was Jenna Clifford also sells watches. So we've done a couple of things for Victorinox as well, where we've taken this photograph, for example, beautiful white watch being done on a normal a white blanket on that sense. Lighting was a little bit more integrated on this one. I think there was about 5 lights that was on it, and a lot of retouching as well, which brought this one there. And then this one was for grand timepieces, where we've actually went to the Mercedes showcase room, and we've literally placed a couple of watches in different locations and everything. And this was actually one of them that was one of my favorites that came out from the
I love that surface. It's just so cool.
It's actually a speaker surface of the Maybach. What is that?
The Maybach.
Maybach. There we go. Stunning car. Stunning car. So yeah, the surfaces, textures, leading lines, everything kind of just came together in that sense. So that's fantastic. And sometimes you just need to be a little bit creative. I've actually sat and folded. The company thought I was like getting crazy. Almost got a written warning for this one. But I sat and I literally folded a couple of these butterflies, and I took a photo of it and just composed this beautiful shot of that beautiful ring, and it kind of just brings in that morganite through it. It's just fantastic ring, this one as well. This one also for grand timepieces, placed it on the AMG steering wheel, lit it up with 2 lights only, 2 A1s, one at the back with a Magmod modifier that was orange, and then just 1 light from front with I think it was a Magmod bounce that I used just to portray that, just to give it a little bit of a nice soft-ish light that fell onto that ring, onto that piece there. And then the little baby elephants and baby big 5G spikes that we've used for Jenna Clifford. This was literally shot individually and then placed together all together in that sense, just to portray that. And obviously this will be considered lifestyle, how it's being used. And yeah, they've used this basically across banners, across the website, across their Facebook, social medias, and printed quite a few posters as well, just to get these guys going. And it really sold well, I think it was there. So then the post-production, very, very, very important. Because your lighting can only do so much, it is quite vital to get going with it inside of Photoshop. Like for instance, as you can see, that beautiful pieces that we've taken out, the glue gun that's been taken out, and inside the rings as well, you can see quite a few of just a little bit of imperfections that we kind of need to take out, just to make sure that those rings do look its optimal best in the way. But yeah, post production, very, very important. So if you do have a retoucher, please use them. Otherwise, it's going to take you quite a while to get going in that sense. But yeah, absolutely, post production does make or break your images in that way. So Joe, are we at the end already? Gee, that was fast.
Okay, go back one slide. So the one thing that I sometimes find when it comes to product shoots, as soon as you start saying to clients, we need to deep etch it. First of all, what is that? And then you try and explain to them that you need to expose for the products and not the background. Even if you shoot it on white, it's still not going to be 100% white.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's it's part of a discussion that I'm busy putting together, where it goes across what you should be charging for, etc. So I mean, let's say you get a quote to shoot some jewelry, and you don't charge them to deep etch it. As you're saying, I mean, it takes a lot of time to do it, especially if the item is quite detailed. It's again, it just goes to educating clients about what it is that goes into the whole shoot. You got to, there's the lights, there's the camera, the lens, all the post-production that goes into stitching those, whatever, 5, 10 images for the focus stacking, etc. It's quite interesting how a lot of clients are, they aren't educated in the sense of, you've got to have a deep etch. It doesn't just arrive like that,
Definitely, yeah.
And I suppose it also depends. So to jump in there, it also depends on the level of client that you're used to dealing with. If you're dealing with a client that's, like Jenna Clifford, they understand, what goes into it, etc. But I think it's the sort of newer clients that are not, they haven't done very many of these that, that struggle with, well, what is this extra cost for?
Absolutely. I mean, a company like Jenna Clifford, they use quite a few photographers, depending on what type of project they have and what type of campaign they're launching and all that sort of thing. So it really depends on client as well, if they are educated in terms of deep edging and all that. If they're not, it is on us to educate them in terms of this is what's the work that has to go in. But even if we do talk to the clients in terms of try to get the terminology over to them, they won't really understand it until they see the product. Like for instance, if you put these two images next to each other, this is what we shoot, this is the end result, then they will kind of understand, but they don't really care about it. They just want to get the end product, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. Yeah.
But the way that I approach it, especially since I've been freelancing, is I work it into my budget already. So without saying, okay, listen, we need to deep edge this, I already work it in, because I've had so much exposure with the type of products that we do, that I kind of realized, okay, listen, it takes me about 30 seconds per ring, for example. This is my time for that, and we charge accordingly. And obviously you charge per your project and stuff. So this is actually something that I needed to put into the slides, the way that you charge and go about asking for clients in terms of obviously the budget for it. But it works exactly the same as other commercial project. You would charge for your time, you would charge for your photography, you would charge for your editing, you would charge for the day itself. But with jewelry, you can either then also charge per item if you want to, or per group shot, or per hour that you work. But it's really personal in that sense. So you kind of have to work out for you, what is it worth photographing this for yourself before approaching obviously the clients and say, okay, listen, this is what I will charge you for this, that, etc., etc. As mentioned, jewelry photography can be easy, but it can also be daunting if you don't light it correctly, because light is your best friend in jewelry photography. Because I mean, as you can see with these guys, these beautiful rings, is your main stones is basically one of the most important things that you want to highlight. And a lot of times, if you don't light this well, the stone itself will look dead. Is what they call it. You need to bring life back into that stones with your lighting, how you obviously put the light back in there. Because of the refractions and reflections, it really gets very, very technical in terms of your angles, especially. I literally moved my snoot, for example, literally a couple of millimeters, and it looks completely different on the ring because of the small area, and obviously the refractions that are happening in there. Because the light goes into the very technical again, sorry. The light goes into your main stone, and from there's about 11 cuts or something for that particular stone at the bottom, and the light literally reflects from that back out to wherever it goes, the angle. And that is basically the art behind it, just to understand where that light is reflecting to, I'd say, for the main stones. But yeah, pricing is a whole different ball game in terms of that. But yeah, you can either do full day or half day, or per project, or per item, or per group. It's really up to the project, I guess. Yeah. Any questions so far?
No, at the moment I've kind of jumped in with all of the ones. John Lerncourt was just wanting to find out how you position the rings, etc. So I answered that for you because you've already told us.
So very easy, yeah.
I'm just trying to. So maybe what you can do. I tell you what, you had one more slide. I don't know if you want to jump onto that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then
this photograph actually was quite difficult to photograph. Once again, this is the reflection and the refraction that happens inside a ring. Had my 100 millimeter macro lens on this, and I literally made with paper. I don't have the paper with me, but a snoot that was really, 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 really tiny in terms of where the light would go out, and it just kind of hit that light, that stone perfectly, and it just kind of went all over the place. So yeah, DIY and problem solving, very, very intense.
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly important as as I suppose a professional / commercial photographer is problem solving. I think for a lot of people who haven't been to a set where you're shooting for ads, etc., you think, a couple of lights, but you walk in there and, like you said, 6 heads. And you're shooting through diffusers, and then there's a mirror that's just bouncing a little bit of light through the one side, etc. It's when you look at that, you start thinking, hold on a second, I'm just like amateur. I'm going to stop this and do something that requires less funding, because I suppose it can be a bit of a daunting thing, but it also just comes down to experience. After shooting it enough times where your starting point will be, and then you can just take it from there.
No, definitely. And it really does depend, once again, on the client's brief, like what they would like to have in the end product, like what they would like to do with it. How does it need to showcase? It's every company is different. So yeah, it's definitely.
Absolutely. Daniel, do you want to unshare your screen, and then we can just put us next to each other like friends?
Sure. There we go. Hey.
There we go. So the Steve Costings has got a question. The reflection. He says that you're creating reflection and depth on your main stone by using the white panel of your light shaper? ?
Sorry, say that again.
He's asking, are you creating the reflection and depth on your main stone by using the white panel of your light shaper?
No. Okay, well, to a sense, it's more the light that creates that depth. What happens with the light shaper is more the light goes through it and obviously diffuses it, or it kind of contracts it into one particular place. But yeah, the light shapers is more for diffusing the light rather than having that light that goes, well, the white reflection that goes into that. If we are talking about pack shots, then we'd rather shoot it through or have little, even piece of paper, to be honest, for that reflection itself, because obviously you'll put that clamps on the piece of paper at the bottom, and then obviously position it as you were to position it, and that basically creates then the white reflection from it. But the light itself is more for the modification of the lights, like to have it either diffused or more spotlight. But yeah, definitely, if you can create a very sterile environment with your surroundings. For example, if you don't have a light box, then having those lights would also create that depth in that sense, like of the reflections. But I'd rather have pieces of paper around, because that I can definitely then just move while not intruding on the lights itself, because the lights, once it's set, it's perfect for that particular shot. Well, perfect to a sense, but having then small pieces of paper, even I'll just use this for example. Not interfering with the lights. Now, this was a bad example.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's the same with the, you know, if you wanted more of a, I suppose a flatter light, a sort of a white card would be great. But if you wanted like a harder, sharper light, a mirror would, you know, would just bounce it straight in there, you know, nice and sharp. And then I suppose at the same time, if you wanted to have those dark sort of shadow strips on it, you'd need to then bring in a black card and move that around until you got you know, that sort of negative reflection. Negative reflection, is that a thing? You know what I mean? You know, where you want it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I've used white, black, and gray, like a 70% gray as well. But I found that white and black is your best reflective, and obviously, what is the no?
I don't know. And let's go with anti-reflective.
Yeah, anti-reflect. Yeah, there
light
we go.
Sucker.
The light sucker. Yeah, some companies do like it, some don't. So it really depends on the client if they do like the black or not. Because a lot of the times it just they call it dead space in a sense. But I love it because it gives that depth. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Steve Casting is asking again, LED or strobes?
Oh, strobes. I absolutely love strobes. But you can achieve the same result with LEDs as well. The main important thing is how you use the lights and how you portray it onto, well, how you read the light and how you bend it in that sense. So your modifiers and etc. etc. LEDs are easier. I mean, I've got like a little LED, and I've even shot a shot with just using my phone's light. To be honest, it really depends on how you use your light and how you want to portray the product itself. Once again, brief dependent.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
LED,
Also,
I just like the strobes more.
I suppose with the in my, you know, my opinion is you know, the LEDs make it a little bit easier because you can see where the light is and you can shift it to where you want it to be. With the strobes, even though they've got a modeling light, it's not quite the same as, you know, putting out 500 watts. You know, that the light that's coming out of that softbox through a diffuser is bouncing around everywhere. You know, when you see it just with a modeling light, it's really, it doesn't have the same feeling. So I suppose the big difference would be, you know, the one being able to see as you move it around, that continuous light, and the other being strobe, more powerful, you know, but being a little bit more difficult to predict where it's going to go, you know, without actually seeing the shots.
Absolutely. That actually brings another thing, is when your LEDs doesn't put out 500 watts of light. So when you're shooting at f8 at 100 ISO at 125 for a second, or whatever the case may be, or settings are, you need to have quite a large amount of light, of powerful light that goes onto that. So that's one of the other reasons why I do strobes rather than LEDs. Although LEDs are easier than you said, it doesn't get that much light onto it. So you need to shoot at either a lower f-stop or introduce more noise into your shot. But if you can, ideally ISO 100 f8 on a macro. There's a sweet spot actually per lens. It's like you really
exactly
where that sweet spot is. And for that macro that I use, f8 is the sweet spot that we use. And obviously with the rail, it really makes it easier in that sense.
Absolutely, yeah. They say that f8 is the general sweet spot of all lenses, but I suppose that really depends on the lens. I suppose the you know, you were saying 1/25th. You know, if you wanted to get that sort of that amount of light with an LED, you'd be shooting at a much longer
Mm.
or slower shutter speed. And I suppose potentially there could be a bit of movement or something in that which would affect the sharpness. So I suppose, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other at the end of the day, I think.
I've even had, when I was shooting a little bit longer exposures, where just I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark IV, so we still have that shutter that goes up and down. Would love to try it on mirrorless, but even that little shutter, it gives a little shake in the camera, unfortunately. And yeah, if you're shooting on that.
Yeah, and especially if you're shooting a ring that's the size of your finger, and it needs to go this big, any movement on that is gonna be show itself as being a little bit soft, and it'll go against the whole thing of focus stacking, etc.
No, definitely.
So what do you, when you do just on the focus stacking side of things, how many shots do you normally take?
Really depends on the angle of the jewelry item, and then obviously the jewelry item itself. I mean, if it's quite big of an item, then we normally take about 18 to 20.
Yeah.
Give or take. But average, I would say about 11. I'd say, yeah, of the photographs that I've taken, and I've edited then all of them in a batch, put them into Photoshop, and then just stack them all together.
Cool. So
really,
so you don't use one of the focus stacking software things that you dump it in and it does it automatically. You go in and you do it layer by layer.
Yeah, basically I do it in Photoshop. So I drag everything into Photoshop, then edit them in there, obviously as one batch.
Yeah.
And then from there, I align them and then stack them. Photoshop does a really, really good job. I've actually tried a couple of stacking programs. Unfortunately, what happens is there's ghosting that happens quite a lot.
Oh, we've lost you for a minute.
I'm sorry. Hello? Still here?
Yeah, no, you're there now. We lost you for 10 seconds or so. You were saying ghosting?
So basically a ghosting happens, and I don't like that, especially if I'm going to do deep etching. So with Photoshop, they've put a lot of work into getting that stacking going. So yeah, I trust it, and it does a really, really pretty good job, especially when you line the layers together.
Yeah, absolutely. What is you import them as I don't know what the term is, but then you can get it to automatically align everything.
I think it's auto blend and auto align. I'm actually going to open it quickly just to see.
Okay.
Gonna bug me.
I'll just see that Natasha's got a question here. So Natasha wants to know if you use focus stacking for your wedding ring shots as well, or mainly for product photography. I thought that was going to be a resounding no.
Yeah, no. Definitely, it's a big no for that one, because the wedding photography, we don't spend a lot of time on the weddings itself. Well, in terms of we do spend a lot of time. Sorry, we don't spend as much time as we would on commercial shots. So a ring shot for a client that is getting married, it's a beautiful shot. That's all they want. Not like where they're going to put it onto the website and actually sell them. So we need to make those photographs obviously a little bit more appealing. But in terms of wedding photography versus commercial, worlds apart. So much more time is being spent on different areas in the fields.
Absolutely. Also, the wedding side of things is more of a lifestyle type feel. So it's going to be like the picture in the frame, which I'm still claiming as a wedding shot. You'd find a situation, you'd put the ring or whatever it might be in there, and you'd shoot it because that tells the story of where it was, and etc. etc.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so it's auto align and auto blend.
Okay.
Yeah, so
cool.
auto align them first, and then I'll blend them together.
Okay.
Otherwise, that would have been, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we are. Oh, Steve's asking again: hard light or soft light? I suppose that also depends on, because you use a combination of hard and soft depending on what you need there.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, really depends on the type of jewelry that we're photographing, and obviously the brief itself. I mean, the slides that I've shown you quickly has a good variety of soft and hard light. But in terms of the normal product shot, I would use. Let me quickly go into my slides again. Where's my slides? This would be a good moment. Recent desktop. There we go. That's one there. Let's go share screen again. You said Acrobat. There we go. Sure. Okay. So if I go back to, for example, where's that one now? No. There we go. This one over here, for example. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So basically what happened here was there was soft light coming in from the top, soft light from the sides, just a little bit on the side, and then one from the bottom. But what's happening in here was a snoot, basically on the main stone itself. There you kind of need a very much harder light because of the intensity of light that needs to go in there, and then it gets reflected back. So it's a combination of soft and hard light, but it really depends on the jewelry item itself. For example, this one over here was completely soft light. I think it was 2 modifiers, or 3 modifiers to be most. This one was just 1 modifier, quite hard light onto it because of the intensity of light that I needed to get onto that. And this one also very soft light because we don't want to get a lot of shadows. Obviously, your reflections on this ring already is quite dark in the sense, so you don't want to overpower it. But soft light really, really worked there. In terms of pack shots like these, soft light all the way until you hit back, unless you have like big stones in the middle, then obviously a bit much more harder light to just to highlight that those items is essential, if I can put that way. Okay.
Yes, so I mean it's basically a case of as you would with any product shoot. You know, you need to sort of raise the ambient light, so you've got so that it's lit, you know, at a certain level, and then you start putting in almost like a task lighting. As Chris is saying, hard light gives the stones a better kick. So you've got the whether it's with the soft boxes or through diffusion screens or something like that, just to give the overall ambient light, and then you just start working on it from there. You know, and as you say, it depends on you know what the actual individual item is, but it's definitely, for me, it would be a combination of soft and hard, you know, as a starting point anyway.
That's it, definitely, yeah.
All right, well, I think we are there. We go. Chris says soft light for the body of the jewelry, and then obviously hard light will give the stones a kick. Thanks, Chris. we should have got him on here as the third screen.
Oh man, he's fantastic. You should see his work, like jewelry photography, especially. Yeah. As I said, like I literally learned from just having a look at his photographs and seeing how I can not replicate, but how he can get that light. And there was, I kid you not, there were products that I just couldn't get the lighting right at all. So yeah, he's a master in that. It's really, really good.
Fantastic. I'll tackle him. He's Daniel. he's saying, no way, Dan's the man. All right. So a big thank you to you for coming on today. Thank you very much for your time and your energy. I know you know, we were talking about it earlier, but the appendix got in the way. So I'm glad you're sort of healing up and got yourself sorted there. But really a big thank you for coming through today. Appreciate it. I think the story behind the images and the pictures you're showing were fantastic. And yeah, it's good luck with the rest of the lockdown. And yeah, let's hope we sort of come out of it all energized and ready to go, and soon.
Absolutely. Yes. But thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And
it's a pleasure.
Yes, I love this channel. Very, very cool.
Cool, man. It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot, eh?